My name is Michael MacHarg. I'm one of the co-founders of Simpa Networks, based here in Bangalore, India. Simpa really came together back in late 2009. We have a group of 4 co-founders. We started to come together to think about the access to energy challenge globally. So 1.5 billion people don't have access to electricity. And we started to think about how can we improve access, particularly to great clean energy technologies. And one of the big roadblocks was households and small businesses can't afford these great solutions. So in the off-grid market, solar lighting solutions are particularly valuable. And so we tried to think of not a way necessarily to make that solar energy system cheaper, but how to make it more affordable through a different type of pricing. And we looked out to what was being so successful in the market, and that's prepaid mobile phones. And when you're looking at the ubiquity of mobile phones, you have 900 million connections across India alone. That pricing model was working, and it's worked incredibly well. So we looked to apply that to energy. And so the first take on that was integrating a technology that would allow you to sell a household solar home system, a system that would power lights, fans, radios, charging your cell phone, but be able to sell it in such a way that the customer could pay in small increments, just like a prepaid phone. And so we set out in 2010 to build a prototype of that technology, did that, and we raised a grant from ARC Finance to actually allow us to do that. And that really got us off the ground. Incubation and plugging into this ecosystem of support around, particularly in social businesses. It's incredibly important as you're moving into these new markets to have a network of which to plug into. So in the case of Villgro, very strong in terms of the access to rural populations, rural marketing, sales in rural areas, seeing how different technologies have grown in that context. We had a technology that we felt confident about coming from the US, but it's all about the execution of the business model. Technology is the smallest piece of it in terms of building the business, building a successful business that can really scale up. And so having partners like Villgro early on that can support, give us feedback in that early stage process of identifying the markets we want to be in, identifying which business model could work in different areas. They had that experience, particularly between all of the other NQBs. So that was very important to us. Well, I mean, I think you can define success at a very granular level, and this is where, it can lean towards storytelling, but it really makes, when you're in someone's home, and I've had the chance to be in homes that are turning on electricity for the first time in their lives. And, I don't kid to say that, it's an amazing experience to see someone who is in their 30s and 40s, 50s, that has never had access to electricity in their house, flip on a light switch, and it's there. That's when you know, all right, whatever you've done to get to that point, to make that real, that's an incredible experience. I think you have to be prepared for a roller coaster. It's a fairly, it's not an immature field, but it's early. The investors haven't necessarily been around for a very long time. Even the support structure, these organizations are not that old, and and very young companies as well. And so everyone's learning from each other, and it can be a roller coaster. Investments take longer to close than you think. It's harder to reach the market than you think. And so you have to be prepared for that. And that's why you need a broad base of support to kind of get you through some of those more challenging days where you're saying, all right, this is just not going to work. And then other days you feel like, you're on top of the world because you found an amazing solution. But, it's really up and down. Well, I think one of the things that I think about, particularly on the investment side, is that we went out in the social business context. You could think about raising philanthropic funds to launch the the business or the organization. I mean, we are a mission-oriented company. At our core, we want to make energy access simple, accessible, and affordable. I mean, it's our core mission. So there are times, and we have raised philanthropic fundings to support that mission as a company. Now, we very much believe that we can't scale it up unless it's a for-profit business, unless it's profitable, and that's the way to scale. But one of the things that we tripped over early on was what type of capital to launch with. So we were approaching grant funders that we can convince, all right, here's the social mission of the company. We need philanthropic dollars to get us that first step. At the same time, we were approaching equity investors and saying, this is a very solid business model, could have enormous impact, and could be very profitable over time. And so we went out trying to raise both at the same time and telling the equity investors that we were looking to raise grants. Well, the equity investors looked at us and said, fantastic, raise your grants, de-risk it for us, and then we'll come in with equity. Well, at the time, we didn't have either one in hand, and so we didn't know which to approach. So we had to be very careful about talking about what we were trying to raise and with whom. And in the end, we have been successful in raising both philanthropic funds and equity in this kind of combined model. Blended capital is what I guess you could call it. Just dive in. I mean, I have a lot of particularly students that approach me and say, should I get a couple of years experience in consulting and then join a social enterprise? I'm saying just if you're at all interested, skip business school, join a startup. This is where you're going to learn the most, have more responsibility than you've ever had. You will have, in the right environments, a tremendous growth path. You're going to learn an incredible amount. So I would say just dive in. It's not pretty. It can get ugly. It's chaotic. But dive in. Join these emerging businesses. And there's so many. I mean, the challenges are enormous in health, education, energy, water. And so we need to have more people working to build these businesses, and the time is now. I mean, these challenges aren't going away. They're enormous opportunities. So I'm just telling people, dive in.